with me today. If you're a scrapbooker or a card maker, chances are you probably have some markers in your collection. Today I want to talk a little bit about the markers that I use in my crafting all the time, and they're the Stampin' Right markers by Stampin' Up. Now, when you choose markers for your collection, it's great to think about a few different things, and I want to share those with you in just a minute. So we'll talk about that, and then I would love to share some of my favorite features of these markers that I use. So let's talk about a few of those things you want to consider when you're choosing markers for your collection. One thing that I love to look at is the type of tip and the thickness of it. So are you getting a bold tip, a fine tip, or are you getting a combination of two tips? That's something you definitely want to look at. Also consider the color assortment. Are there a few colors you can choose from? Are there tons of colors you can choose from? I also like to have a marker that is easy to identify the color I want to use. So when I want to grab my marker and go with it, I don't want to spend time trying to figure out if I have the right color or not. I also really encourage you to find a marker that can be refilled. When you purchase markers for your collection, you want those things to last. Now, if you can refill them, they can last years and years and years. Last but not least, think about quality. Just because you find some markers with a great price doesn't mean they're going to last very long. So consider quality as well, and the brand name, the company that has produced those markers. So let's go ahead and look at a few features of these Stampin' Up! Markers that I love to use. Here you can see that these markers have two tips, and they're labeled here on the side. So we have a fine tip and we have a brush tip. So when we remove the cap on the end, you can see here's the brush tip, and on this end, we have the fine tip. They have a smooth grip, so they're really comfortable to hold. They have the caps on both ends, which you can see, which are both marked with the color, so it's really easy to grab the color that you want. They also have the color labeled here on the side, so if you want to if you're not sure which blue or which green you have, you can check the side and make sure you do have the color that you want. Now, my favorite things about these markers are, one, the brush tip, and two, that they are refillable. So let's look at that brush tip quickly. Bring a piece of cardstock in here, and you can see that the brush tip goes from thicker back here at the base to pointed at the end. And what I love about this brush tip is, depending on the pressure that you apply, you can get from a very fine line to a very thick line. So if you are into calligraphy or any types of decorative writing, this is a really nice type of tip to have for that. The other thing I love that I just mentioned is that they are refillable, and I will show you here in just a minute how to refill them with our ink refills. So let's look at a couple of ways to use these markers. One is to just color an image. So I have stamped this with StazOn ink. If you're going to color an image in, ideally you want to use the StazOn ink to make sure it does not bleed. You don't have to, but if I'm going to be doing much coloring over the lines, then I try to use that StazOn. So you can color just like this and color whichever of the areas you want to. Now, just to give you a couple of creative ideas of ways to use markers, I'll show you something else. So you can ink your stamp on an ink pad, of course, but have you ever thought about inking it with markers? And then with this technique, you can actually put multiple colors on this stamp. So I am going to ink these lower wings with my gorgeous grape ink, and I am going to color the body and the upper wings with Blackberry Bliss, which is a darker color. And then we'll stamp this and see how it goes. Now, if you are going to color your stamps like this, it is a good idea to reactivate the ink by breathing on this quickly before you stamp it. So I'm going to give it a quick huff, which you should be able to hear, to make sure there's plenty of moisture right there where the ink is, and give it a good stamp. Now, if I had chosen different colors, it might be a little bit more obvious, but if you look close, you can see that difference, that the body and the upper wings are darker and the bottom wings are lighter. So that's one fun technique to use. It's really fun with greeting stamps that you can make like the top line one color and the bottom line a different color, or you can color each letter a different color. You can also do something similar to what I just did, but then do sort of a tapping motion on top to get some just more color variation mixed in. So here I'm going to use, that was Bumblebee, I believe. Here is some Pale Papaya. We'll do Pale Papaya down here as well. And then I am going to do just some tapping with the brush tip all over and see if we can get just a little bit of darker color mixed in. And this may not be quite as obvious because I chose a stamp that's a little bit open. If you choose a solid stamp, you should be able to see it a little bit better. And I forgot to breathe on it that time, but you can see that even though I didn't breathe on it, you can still see that color variation and it did still stamp. So there are a lot of ways to use your markers and use different techniques in your stamping. Quickly, let's talk about how to store markers. I like to store them in my storage by Stampin' Up. That way I can keep the coordinating color right beside my ink pad, which is really nice. And I also keep the coordinating ink refills up on top of the stack in the storage topper. Now here are a couple of tips that you will want to know. One, always store your markers horizontally. So if you don't have the storage, if they're not necessarily horizontal when you put them away, just keep that in mind. You want them to be horizontal. If you store them up and down like this, the ink is all going to run to the bottom tip. And when you get it out to use it next time, you may not have any ink up here in this tip where you want it. So make sure you store them horizontally. And last but not least, let's look at how to refill them. So here is my gorgeous scrape marker. I'm going to remove the cap for the brush tip and grab a pair of tweezers to remove that brush tip. That will actually pull right out of there. So I'll gently squeeze on this brush tip down towards the base, and it is going to come out. So I'll lay it on some scrap paper, and now we have an opening in the tip of the marker. So what you can do is take your ink refill in the coordinating color, and I like to hold this at an angle and start to drop in a few drops of ink. How many drops of ink you're going to need depends on how dry this has gotten, but what you want to do is make sure you don't overfill it. If you overfill it, when you go to insert the tip back in, it will overflow. Then you'll have a little bit of a mess, which you can clean up. But I like to put a few drops in, give it a little tap, let that settle, and then put in a few more drops. So I usually start with about 10, but you want to add these slowly. If you add them too fast, it is going to fill up that whole tip with an air bubble underneath, and then you have to figure out how to pop that air bubble to get the ink to go down in. So slow and steady wins the race when it comes to re-inking your markers. So you can try a few. Once you are comfortable with how much you have put in, you can reinsert the tip. Make sure you get it pushed down in all the way. And it's good to put the cap back on and let this sit for a little while to help that ink get dispersed throughout the marker. Then if you find that it's still too dry, you can go ahead and add some more. So that is what I have to share today about the Stampin' Write markers. If you're in the market for some new markers, I do definitely recommend that you try these out. It's a great investment when you use the Stampin' Up! Ink pads and markers because you can use that one refill to re-ink both of them and use them for years and years to come. So thanks for watching along today. You can find links to order these markers in the video description below, as well as a link to my website to get more ideas and inspiration for your paper crafting projects. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, give me a like, give me a thumbs up. Send me a comment down below to let me know what you think and what upcoming project ideas you would like to see. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you again next time when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.